Three things require absolute precision: aging a fine barrel of bourbon, landing a top rope elbow drop, and a third act plot twist that leaves an entire theater speechless. In other words, you can listen to me ramble on about bourbon belts and blockbusters. Welcome to the show.
Bourbon, belts, blockbusters. You are listening to the Triple B podcast. Let's fucking go.
What's up, Triple Beers? We are back with a new episode, and when I say we, I just mean me and my boy Michelangelo over there, because I'm going solo because Ryan is on a fishing trip, and it's been a minute since I've done this solo. I want to thank Nathan and Justin being able to fill in whenever possible, but they just couldn't do it this weekend, so when in doubt, solo out. And with that, we are going to get into our bourbon of the week, and we're actually going to do a bourbon rewind. So just utilizing a bourbon that we've already had on the show. It helps us get through some bottles because boy is my collection building up. But I'm going with one of my old time favorites, and here we go. Open up the briefcase because it's still fun to do it that way. And we got struggling here. We got the Bibb and Tucker Gold Roast Bourbon. This was a bourbon that rated very highly. We did it on a morning episode, so it was inspired with the coffee taste to it. So really excited to give this one a try. I know we rated it a 10 out of a 10, and I'm excited to get right back into it and see if it still holds up. So here we go. Let me pour this in. Ooh, nice little pop there. And just going back over the label here. Like I said, Bibb and Tucker Gold Roast Bourbon. Bibb and Tucker Gold Roast Bourbon is aged for 6 years in new American oak, then infused with roasted coffee beans, giving this bourbon a complex yet noticeably smooth finish with subtle notes of roasted coffee. And with that, going to give this a try. Ooh. That still holds up. It is just as I remembered it. It's very smooth. The coffee notes in there just hits just right where it's not taking away from the bourbon, but gives you a different kind of flavor in there. It's unlike any other bourbon I've ever had before, where you tend to get some flavor in there, but it just kind of is there. This one really pops through. And so I'm going to stick with my guns on this. Still a 10 out of 10. I'm super excited to sip on this throughout the episode. You can still find this at Total Wine. I saw it there a couple weekends ago. Highly recommend. Can't recommend it enough. That's going to bring us over to belts. Ding, 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 ding. I'm covering Raw and SmackDown this week. I will say it was pretty... We had some good matches. We had some quick matches on SmackDown, but overall I feel like this week was really heavily driven by promos and stories to drive home SummerSlam next week, which I can appreciate, but also where has this been for the last few weeks? Like, you go very heavy in the wrestling and then you start building the story later on. I don't know. It's not. I like a good balance in there where you can drive home promos every other week, essentially. But that's the week we kind of got. We got very story-driven week, so let's dive right into Raw. I'm going to keep it to 4 points, or my best to keep it at 4 points for each show, but, it's my week alone. I get to do whatever I want. So, here it is. Raw, going in no particular order, just going through some highlights of what I thought stuck out. LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. Overall, I thought they had a great match. These two have really good chemistry in the ring. It was nice to see Jacob finally wrestle because if I'm not mistaken, this was his first match since losing Tribal Combat to Roman Reigns. So it was just refreshing to see the Samoan Werewolf in the ring again because he is too good. You pair him up with LA Knight, it's bound to be a great match. Jacob wins this match. And then we get an all-out brawl, really building up the match to at SummerSlam with LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Royce Keys versus Jacob Fatu and the Usos. I think this was a great way to close out Monday Night Raw. It was just your good old-fashioned brawl to really drive home the feud. I'm not super excited that it's a six-man tag. We've already seen that basically at WrestleMania with LA Knight and the Usos. Let's switch it up. But again, we get Jacob Fatu in the match, which is great. And then hopefully better things for LA Knight post-show. But we also get Royce Keys on a PLE. So it's nice to get some fresh faces on a PLE. They got to fill out 2 nights. Overall, great segment for me. Enjoyed that. That brings us to Danhausen. Danhausen had quite the night. He had his imprint all over Raw throughout the night. I mean, it's set up, ended up being a couple segments and 2 matches were all made from this Danhausen thing. So if we rewind back past Saturday night's main event, there was a SummerSlam presser and Dominic Mysterio and JD and Liv are just still going after the money that he stole from him. So they're continuing this feud. Fast forward to Monday Night Raw. They're bullying Danhausen in the back and asking for the money back. Fast forward, we get Danhausen coming out to the ring with a bag of money, which we presume is fake. And lo and behold, it is fake. But Judgment Day gets this bag of money. Joe Hendry comes out to save because Judgment Day was beating down Danhausen. I wish that they would go back to having people say his name for him to appear. If Danhausen did say that, we didn't hear it on the TV. I wish they would just kind of go back to that because, I mean, part of Joe Hendry's promo is say his name and he appears. Let's bring it back because that would have been super funny if Danhausen just randomly yells out Joe Hendry and he comes out. But again, this is about Danhausen. Fast forward, we're in the back. Judgment Day finds out that it was fake money in the bag. They're pissed off. We got Adam Pearce, Danhausen, Joe Hendry also back there. JD McDonough throws the bag of money behind him and it hits Oba Femi, sending him up a match between those. Holy hell. JD is the ultimate stunt man. He was getting tossed like a rag doll throughout this. Just took a squash match of a lifetime from Femi, which was pretty solid. And then you fast forward later in the night where Dominic Mysterio goes against Joe Hendry. Liv was through and through involved throughout this match. Danhausen gets smacked or clotheslined by Liv and retreats up the thing and comes out on his little vehicle with little Io Sky. And so they did a great job not only building the Danhausen feud with Judgment Day overall and Dominic Mysterio, who he's facing at SummerSlam, but they also got, Oba Femi some TV time. They got Io Sky out there to drive her feud with Liv Morgan. So overall, just Danhausen is having a week-to-week handprint on each show, and he's just bringing a lot of joy to the TV. I think Ryan and I have talked week and week about this guy. He's can do no wrong, and they're totally right to light this rocket behind him and get him on the show. So super fun. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Next up, and what I thought was pretty interesting, was Solo propositioning Seth Rollins to be an ally at SummerSlam because he goes through the thing going, I've been there, Bloodline is going to be involved. There's no way they just let Seth Rollins and Roman be one-on-one. Side note, it should just be one-on-one because the feud there deserves it. So hopefully that is what happens. But Solo's really driving home that Bloodline is going to get involved. And really, now looking back at the great LA Knight promo with Seth a couple weeks ago, and now this, I think this is their way of setting up War Games for later in the year. We get Bloodline versus Seth Rollins, LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Solo, and probably one other for each team. But that's what this really feels like. Solo, though, has been so solid on his own, and his promo skills have been great. He's too funny. The role he's in currently is totally right up his alley. I'm thoroughly enjoying that. I'm not super pumped about the prospect of if this is going to be the War Games this year, but that's just my opinion. That's what this feels like, and I know it's early on, but it does start building that story towards War Games. So interesting. That's my prediction right now. We'll see if that comes true. And then for my banger of the night, I just can't get enough of the young OG Javon Evans. This guy continues to show how special he is. To me, again, he was the highlight of the night. Solely him, but teaming him up with Dragon Lee, I thought was smart. If you're not going to push these guys solo, having them be a tag team, they could be Air Boom version 2.0. I'm here for that. They really pulled off the tag team well, but Javon Evans, man, is so special. I also did like how post-match Braun and Austin Theory were beating them down, and then Alpha Academy comes out and comes for the save. Continue to build Otis as this big beast that can go toe-to-toe with Braun Breaker. I think he's ultimately the one guy that comes as the unbeatable guy, and Otis comes out and can go to toe-to-toe with him. And so they're doing a good job building that and building this feud. Again, I don't think it's going to play out at SummerSlam, but a future tag team title match is in the cards, and I'm here for it. And then side note, we get Braun Breaker's spear, dude. I know we've talked about it, but I mean, he broke Dragon Lee in half, and then fast forward and he totally killed Otis with that spear. So Braun Breaker is the king of the spear right now. I wish it was just a move that he was doing because it's the ultimate finisher for him. It looks so good when he does it. I know Roman Reigns isn't going to give it up, and then in turn his bloodline family is not going to give it up, but I really wish Braun Breaker was doing the spear alone, because bro is killing people out there, or making us feel like he's killing people out there. Well, that wraps up Monday Night Raw. Overall, just a fine show. Again, like I said, it was a lot of story building for SummerSlam versus action. But the action that they did have, I thought was decent in the ring. So, and that brings me over to SmackDown. This night felt like it flew by. It was just really quick action in the ring, not long matches. Again, very story driven, setting up things. But overall, just kind of a forgettable show, with the exception of a few things, and those few things we'll get into. Chelsea Green wins her way into the ladder match for the interim women's championship. Could not be more excited for that. Granted, I'm getting my hopes up for probably nothing because she's not going to win, but the little percent that she could has me excited because this is what she deserves. She deserves to be in this match. Finally, they booked something right for this ladder match, because again, Tiffany Stratton should not be in it. She should be defending her U.S. championship. Jade and now Charlotte, who just got into the match yesterday, should not be in the match. They should have their own match at SummerSlam, because they've done a good job building their feud, but the last 2 weeks with their qualifier matches have me scratching my head. You're trying to sell it as they just can't wait to get their hands on each other, but they're disqualifying each other so they get put into this match. So really they did each other a favor because they didn't have to wrestle a full match against Nia. They just got shooed into this ladder match. So scratch my head. That's besides the point. Chelsea Green is in the match. I hope she pulls it off. The only other person I see winning this match is Charlotte Flair and or Jade, because it gives them a chance to build their feud and have a title with it. But I really hope I'm wrong about that, because again, me and Ryan talked about it. They've done a good job building this feud with those two where you don't need a title on the line. So please don't go with them. Go with Chelsea. I wouldn't mind seeing a Chelsea versus Rhea match when she returns from injury. So please give the people what they want, and they want Chelsea. Next up, we got Nick Aldis and Gunther contract signing. I thought overall this was a great segment. Maybe not the best promo work by either of the two, but really felt the hatred between them. And Gunther is, just digging at Nick Aldis, pulling the jealousy card. But really, the highlight was Nick Aldis on this. I'm excited. This will be my first time seeing him wrestle. I've heard good things, but I'm really excited about that. I think Nick Aldis really sold the pushing a man to his limits, and then he takes action with this promo. Interesting here is that Nick Aldis is giving up his rights to be the GM of SmackDown once he becomes an active wrestler. So does that mean we're going to get him in the ring more often? That's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm hoping. I think there's plenty of feuds for him to have. We got Sami Zayn who was taking shots at him in the back. We'll get to that later on. We got history with Drew McIntyre, so there's definitely feuds to be had with Nick Aldis, so that's exciting in itself. Nick Aldis had a really great line in this promo where he was like, I haven't had a match in 3 years, and you have everything to lose. You go from being the career killer to the bitch who lost to his boss. Cold ass line. Fucking loved it. It was so good. It was super great. Segment breaks out into a brawl and everything. Gunther powerbombs Nick Aldis through the table, so we'll see where it goes from there. Like I alluded to earlier, Sami Zayn came up and he was talking about getting screwed over. He's not letting this title shot go down. He was talking about Nick Aldis, how he screwed him out of getting his match at SummerSlam in that fatal 4-way. And it was just super passionate injustice promo that Sami gave, and I was really eating it up. It ended up going into a toe-to-toe with Adam Pearce and just demanding that he gets added to the heavyweight title match with Cody and CM Punk. Pearce says that's set in stone, but you do get a match at SummerSlam. You get to be one half of a number one contenders match, which would be filled in with a fatal 4-way match that happened in the main event. And that was with Trick Williams, Royce Keys, Damian Priest, and Finn Balor. Whoever wins that match faces Sami Zayn at SummerSlam. So kind of like the premise of this. It's kind of weird, though, that there's a number one contenders match on SummerSlam. I don't recall ever seeing a PLE have a number one contenders match. Could be wrong in that, but it just doesn't stick out in my mind. So a little weird, but excited about Sami Zayn becoming a number one contender again. Or fast forward, we got Finn Balor winning that fatal 4-way match. So it is Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn. That match is gonna cook. It's gonna be so great. I'm super pumped. Now I'm having a struggle with who to root for, because huge Finn Balor fan, huge Sami Zayn fan, so I guess you can't go wrong with either or. I would probably prefer Finn Balor just because it's been so long since he's had the title, and would love for him to get another chance for it. His matches with CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title really cook, so I could see that running it back or even against Cody. I'm sure either or would be a great match down the road, but I think I'm leaning towards Finn Balor winning the number one contenders match. Going back to the Fatal 4-Way from SmackDown, I thought it was too quick. It was just like commercial. They had 2 commercials and it was in the last 12 minutes of the show. So it was super quick. We obviously got some bloodline costing Royce Keys. We had Damian Priest get the pin. So I just was kind of scratching my head at all the competitors that Finn Balor went against. So you have Royce Keys, who's already in a match at SummerSlam. He's in the 6-man tag match. So, I mean, they alluded to it, but he would be pulling double duty. I just thought that was a weird, way to push that story. I don't want to see Royce Keys in 2 matches, so weird to have him in that match. Then you got Damian Priest, who's in a tag team with R-Truth, who are tag team champions, and they have a feud with the War Raiders, yet Damian Priest is doing side quests right before the title match. Apparently that's going to happen next Friday on SmackDown. So another head-scratching thing. And then you got Trick Williams, again, a champion who should be just focused on his championship and defending it, but no, he's in a number one contenders match essentially. So that was confusing to have all those. It really hurts anyone who loses that match. I mean, Finn Balor was the obvious choice to win. Not trying to be biased or anything, but he's the only one not really involved in anything else. So you take the other 3, why should they take a loss here, right? Because you got important parts in SummerSlam or building towards championship matches. So that was my thoughts on that. Again, super pumped about Sami Zayn versus Finn Balor, though. And then, interesting, they go off of air, and then Baron Corbin attacks Trick Williams post-match, which sets up a match for the U.S. title at SummerSlam. So I was wondering what was happening with Baron Corbin because, A, he shows up 2 weeks ago and attacks Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. You get some promos last week, but no real appearance from him. And then I was like, oh, he can easily get involved in this match. Well, that didn't happen. Again, they were leaning in towards this bloodline feud with LA Knight, Royce Keys, etc. So I don't hate that he attacked post-match. Hate that it just wasn't shown on SmackDown. But got to watch the highlights afterwards. Interesting that Baron Corbin just returns and gets a title shot on one of the biggest PLEs of the year for WWE. So hopefully, I mean, the one-on-one match is going to be good. I prefer to have Carmelo Hayes added to it. Again, just seems like he had everything going for him right into WrestleMania, then gets pulled in favor of Sami Zayn. Now we got Trick Williams and Baron Corbin basically pulling Carmelo Hayes out of that. So interesting. I wonder what they could do with that next week, but we'll see. And then the banger of the night goes to Cody and Punk's promo. This was just everything this feud needed. I dug the whole rewinding back and talking about the win. Just say win. That was a great way to set it up, even though I was pissed off about the Sami Zayn thing. It was just a good callback. But then they started twisting it where it was like, you hit me in the face with the title belt, and Punk is saying it was an accident. And I was just like, are we really going to build a feud with just an accidental belt slap in the face? Come on. But then they did a great way in this promo, just building off of that and then just going at it in a war of words. You got 2 great promo givers going at each other, and it struck gold. It did. It really did. It goes to show you that Cody, when he's not just overly yelling and yelling enough, bro can give a great promo. And then of course you got CM Punk. They just went jab for jab. I just now I'm sold on this match. It was cold. It was going for the throat. I really liked the way that Cody was saying, "I love you, I respect you, but I hate you," essentially. Like, it was confusing, but it was a great way to say it. He also said, "I need to beat you." It just took me back to the Stone Cold Rock feud of WrestleMania 17 when Stone Cold said that to The Rock. Great little throwback there. And then Punk goes on to say, "At SummerSlam, I'm going to break your heart." I just thought that line was good. You got music playing and Cody cutting off and said, "This is going to be the music that you hear when I become champion," while you're looking at the lights. Again, overall, solid promo between these two. That's what this feud needed if they're just going to go with these two. I love it. I'm here for it. Excited to see what happens at SummerSlam. So that wraps up SmackDown. Again, just pretty quick night. The 2 hours of SmackDown are really flying by really quickly. A lot of ads, obviously, but 2 hours is flying by for the show. So again, very promo driven for SummerSlam, and I guess that works for it. Belts question of the week. If you were a wrestler, who would your best friend be in the business? So, I went with Sami Zayn. I think the two of us would just geek out about wrestling. I don't know. I don't know him personally by any means, but just the way he comes across on our screens from interviews that I've seen him in, he genuinely seems like a great guy and someone you can just joke with, have a great time with. I pick Sami Zayn. He would be my best friend, and in turn, because him and KO are tight, we would make a great trifecta as a little friend group. Yeah, so that's my answer, Sami Zayn and a little sprinkle of KO. Let us know in the comments who your best friend would be in the business. That brings me over to Blockbusters. Lights, camera, action. I got a focus feature here, and it wouldn't be me if it wasn't a horror movie, and that's what my focus feature is. It's The Other Mommy, and the synopsis goes like this. Bella, an 8-year-old girl living in a home with marital problems, confronts a sinister entity that comes out of her closet. The presence, who she calls Other Mommy, becomes increasingly threatening to her and her family. This movie is based off a book called Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. I know Haley has read it and said it is creepy. I think the trailer does a great job showing how creepy this movie can be. Love the premise. I would love to go back and read this book. Haley's gonna make fun of me because I know she wanted me to read it a long time ago, but here we are. It got the movie behind it. Now I have all the reason to want to go and read it. I know they're gonna have to change things probably from what the book did, just based off of things that she's told me about the book. So I'll be interested to see how that is. But again, I think I'm going to go back and read this so I can fully grasp what the movie will be about. Cast for this is Jessica Chastain, Jade Duplass, Arabella Olivia Clark. The release date for this is August 9th of this year, and it's going to be out in theaters. Again, just looks super creepy. I think the scene everyone's taking away from the trailer is the little jump scare with the other mommy all contorted underneath the table. Legit cool jump scare in that. You don't get much of those in the trailer, so that was cool to see. You get some like ball pit balls in the car and her just kind of creeping up. You get the famous line from the book. I know for a fact that it's in the book, but it's "let me into your heart." So just all around creepy. I'm super excited for this, and Haley's even excited to go see this, and she doesn't really do horror movies, so we'll be going to check that one out in October. It's spooky season time. Cannot wait. What's in the news? We got a bunch of things in the news. Just big week for trailers coming out. More follow-up trailers than new ones, but we do got some new things in here. We also got a San Diego Comic-Con coming out, but I'm going to kick this off first and just say I'm not talking about Avengers Doomsday. That obviously would have been my focus feature, but with Ryan being gone, I wanted to say that. So next episode, that's going to be both of our focus feature, and we'll kind of dive into that, and also be talking about some of the things that came out today from San Diego Comic-Con about the Marvel Universe, the MCU. So more to come on that. But going back into our talking points here, we got the Matchbox trailer. This is the Mattel Matchbox. That's what they're selling this as. But you watch the trailer, you don't really get that. This more looks like a Fast and the Furious movie, and it does have John Cena, so he's a Toretto from Fast and the Furious, and that's basically what this looks like. It could be a spin-off, but they do mention Matchbox cars throughout it, so very loosely tying it in. At first, I thought it could be like a Jumanji where they're playing with cars but kind of get sucked into a world or something. Maybe that's what happens, but overall, I think the movie looks super funny. John Cena does great in these action comedies, and that's what this looks like. Also got Jessica Biel as well, so great take there. It's going to be on Apple TV, and they haven't steered us wrong, so looking forward to that. Next up, All Night Wrong. This is a comedy thriller. It looks freaking hilarious. It's two people meeting up for a blind date. They're going back to a hotel. Needs cash to pay, so they're going out and steal a car which has a dead body in the trunk, along with $40,000. And as you can tell, a lot of things unwind from that. So looks super funny. I'm super pumped for this. This was close to being my focus feature, but gotta give that slight edge to the horror movies. You know how I be that way. Got a couple follow-up trailers here that we had some teasers for, and now we're getting official trailers and or final trailers, but we got Lanterns and also Resident Evil. Overall, I think Lantern show, again, I know we talked on it, but it looks super good. It's a continuation of the DCU on HBO Max. It's coming out in August. I'm loving the build to this. It looks serious. It looks gritty. Looks dark. We even get the famous Green Lantern line in this trailer this time. So love that it's a series. You can really dive into that. I know Ryan points that out, is just how much you can put into a series versus a movie. And it's due time to get a great Green Lantern out there, right? He's one of the most underrated superheroes. I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough, but super excited for that. Going over to the Resident Evil that I alluded to, this is a follow-up to the teaser trailer, and we get a little more tie-ins to Resident Evil, but just kind of loose. Yeah, I love the little shotgun a cameo in there. We got a typewriter cameo, and then at the end of this trailer, they bring up Raccoon City. So finally, we're getting a little tie-ins. I know the first trailer didn't really tie in the Resident Evil universe, other than we see zombies walking around and everything. So great follow-up trailer here. I'm super pumped for it. It looks like it's going to be a fun one. Next up, we got Ebenezer trailer. This is the return of Johnny Depp. I believe this is the first film or anything that he's been in since his whole trial situation. So it's exciting to see him on here. The trailer really does a great job of just going, hey, this is the guy that brought you Jack Sparrow, who brought you the Mad Hatter and everything. He's just the king of all things. And so it's the return of form of Johnny Depp, and he's in Ebenezer. This looks like a great take on the Christmas Carol. Get to dive in more into it. It looks like definitely feels like a Tim Burton film, but it is not. This is Ty West's project, and I think this looks like a fun one. Johnny Depp is he's so good at that quirky humor, and that really comes out in this trailer. We got RoboCop is getting a reboot series on Amazon Prime. It's going to be an 8-episode project. It's going to be just a full-on reboot of what came out, the movies that came out and everything. I remember seeing RoboCop forever ago, so I'm due for a rewatch on it. I remember it being super cool as a kid, although it was super violent. Want to go back and rewatch it. I never got around to watching the remake movie, but I'll give that a check out as well. Just the RoboCop property is pretty cool, so just thought that was newsworthy. Talking about Comic-Con, just a few things for collectors like myself. It looks like we're getting some steelbooks for Clerks 2, and as well as Saw 5 through 7. Love the Clerks franchise. Clerks 2, so funny. It was a big part of my high school memories, watching that with my buddies. So super excited for that. And then Saw 5 through 7 are getting a 4K steelbook. I did pick up the other 4 earlier. I believe it was last year. They came from Amazon. I believe these ones will be an Amazon exclusive as well. But just a way to build my collection more. And then another thing of note from Comic-Con was Rick Moranis appeared for Spaceballs 2 panel. Got a big standing ovation from what I hear, and just super excited to see him come out of retirement for Spaceballs 2, and I cannot wait for that movie. And that wraps up what's in the news. Quite a bit there. But like I said, going to talk about Avengers and the panel next week with Ryan when he returns. Blockbusters question of the week. What is the first movie you saw alone, if any, at the movie theater? Any thoughts on going to the movies alone? Well, I have in fact gone to the movies quite a few times by myself, and the first movie that I saw in the movie theater was Snakes on a Plane. And just judging by the movie, there's no wonder I went alone. No one wanted to go see it with me. No, I was on a little weekend trip. I went to Victoria, Canada, and on my way back, I ended up coming back a little sooner. The trip got cut short, so I was like, I want to fill in some time. So I was like, I'm going to check out this movie, and Snakes on the Plane was the first thing that was available for a time near me. The movie's super corny, but it was also Samuel L. Jackson, just slapstick comedy action. I thought, the movie's not great, but it was also a fun, guilty pleasure at the same time. Thoughts on going to the movies alone? I think it's great. I think it's just, I love the movie theater experience, and you can't always get someone to go with you, especially as you're adulting. Sometimes just getting to the theater, you have to make some time and whatnot. So, I don't mind it. I think it's almost therapeutic. It's just you get to bask in the movie. There's no distraction next to you. Not saying that going with someone is distracting. It's just there's absolutely no distractions unless someone in the theater is being annoying or anything. But overall, I think it's a fun experience. It's not something I do often, but I definitely, if the time permits and it's a movie that Haley or one of my friends don't want to go see, I'm going to make the time and go see it. So overall, great experience. Snakes on the Plane, like I said, kind of a guilty pleasure movie. I haven't seen it since that time, but just memory and recollection, it was just a fun summer action comedy-ish movie. So that is episode 112 for you. Ryan, definitely welcome you back next week. Cheers.
Let's